Hello. Welcome. Today we're gonna be reviewing Dead Space and talking about the new remake, which personally I think is a much better version of Dead Space. Like this is the definitive version. Even though I played on PS5 and there is some issues with the PS5, and I'll talk about that later. But I think I want to start by talking about like how Isaac can actually now talk to the player versus before, prior in the previous games, he had never said. I think in maybe Dead Space 2 or 3, I remember that he did have some voice lines, but not as many in this as in this game, and it actually adds on to the story to where the world feels more lively versus the original Dead Space, which was just pure horror, but without Isaac talking, it kind of changed it a bit. You can tell the fear that Isaac feels throughout most of the game in most areas, as most areas just become human flesh. That's the only spoiler you're gonna get in this entire review. Besides me talking about the weapons and stuff, I mean, most of these are spoilers, but the point of this was to make it more spoiler free. Either way, another thing I really liked about the game is the sound effects and how they sound better, and the fact that with the actual zero gravity parts, you don't have to worry about just being stuck in gravity now, where you're just stuck in place, where it doesn't really feel like zero gravity. It feels like you're more or less jumping from place to place from locations that wouldn't make sense normally. Like, you kind of just felt, not very space-like. But I know that's the best they could do with the engine they had software. Another thing they've removed is you don't need to use nodes for opening doors. You can now just use your nodes for upgrading your suit, your weapons, and there's also more suits that you can wear too. I have pretty much all of them unlocked except for the hardest difficulty one, which I might unlock on my PS4 for 5. I mean, there's no PS4 copy. Um, Probably will just unlock it on PC, but I'd also like to talk a bit about the weapons, because I think the weapons and the graphics are the biggest highlight of the entire game. Also, I do like the downgrades they made to some guns, because the downgrades aren't complete downgrades. You can upgrade it back to what it originally was and better. So it's more like they made it to where you can't just cheese the game with one gun, pretty much. Like, you just upgrade one weapon and that's it, and you use that gun the entire game, and your points to just buy ammo for that gun. And just avoid getting hit. Because that's what a lot of people did in the original Dead Space, because that was, the easiest method. But in this one, it does force you to use all of your weapons, and surprisingly, some guns I never even really used in the original game, like the flamethrower. I actually used it for most of the end of, like, at the very end of the game. I used it pretty much throughout that entire part. It was surprisingly one of the most effective weapons, even though before it was not really the best. Like, it's not the worst, but I never used it, really. Except for rarely, to conserve some ammo in the original Dead Space. I mean, with the contact beam, I think that one's been improved a lot and feels more like, you're actually shooting a giant laser. And I like how it has actual motion to it. Like, you can see it kind of making a little wave when you use contact beam. I think that makes the game a lot more interesting, especially with the gameplay aspects in the game. And another thing, I think this one's kind of weird. They kind of did change Isaac's look from the beginning, like the very first Dead Space. I don't think it's a bad thing, because it matches more with Dead Space 2 in theory, but also we're losing the original Isaac's look, which kind of sucks, just a little bit. Another gun I want to talk about is the Plasma Cutter. I like how the design does feel way more like it's from Dead Space 3, because Dead Space 3 was the first one I played, and it was one of my favorite games. Even though the very first time I actually played Dead Space, I skipped every cutscene, but I was back when I just wanted to play the game. I didn't want to watch cutscenes, so I didn't care for them. Except for Black Ops and, I think Hitman Absolution. That's like the only games I actually cared about the cutscenes, and then the rest I was just like skipping all of them. So I was just like, I just want to play the game, man. But, either way, I think the game is overall of the original game. And with the Plasma Code too, I also like the upgrades, how the upgrades do make the gun feel way more different over time. Like, upgrading the ammo capacity, it feels like you have too much ammo normally, or at least that's why I started getting the feeling of, until you realize that even with that extra ammo capacity, you're still kind of fucked, and either you have to be forced to use the environment as a weapon, or just attack them by stopping or slowing their motion down, and then beating that feeling shit out of them. Which that's the only thing I want to talk about is like the motions in the game in general. How the motion capture is done was great. I don't know if it's motion capture or what they did for the animations, but it does look more realistic than most games I see nowadays. Where like with Forspoken, where I can think of many better black characters and female protagonists from a variety of games, even PlayStation's own game library with Horizon Zero Dawn and Mafia 3. Both those games are significantly better. And both of them look significantly better too, and one of them's from 2005, or 2015. 2015. That 2005 would be closer to when the original Dead Space released. Knowing that the line gun, which is a gun I commonly didn't use either in the first Dead Space because it felt too similar to a plasma cutter, so I didn't feel the need to use it. But it was a pretty good gun. And I do like the fact that you can create traps with it now, which is actually very helpful for me at several parts on pretty much any difficulty I've played the game on so far, which is pretty much all the main 3 difficulties, and that's it. I haven't played the last difficulty yet, but I will. We'll get to that one later, which I'm going to rely on objects to basically get me out of jam anytime I run out of bullets. That's going to be fun. Another gun that I think has improved a lot is the Force gun. The Force gun in the original game was still overpowered though. Like, it's just a little bit more overpowered in this game, especially with all the nodes you can get. Nodes you can use that to upgrade completely, which I haven't done that yet. But I do plan to, but even from where I have it upgraded to, you can still rip through pretty much any of the necromorphs with pretty much just one shot, or even attack more than one of them. It reminds me a lot of the Thunder gun from Black Ops, and that's what it reminded me of originally with that gun. Given that you're ripping through hordes of enemies with that gun. Excluding the fact that you run out of ammo fast. Which is why I pretty much never really used it. Except for boss battles mainly, or when I'm around an enemy horde, which is realistically when you should use that gun. Or another gun that can work for that would be the plasma rifle, which has been downgraded a bit. Like, they dumbed it down a little bit in comparison to the original, where it had more of an impactful sound effect, but I prefer that the new one will have that later on. Like, as you upgrade it and progress throughout the game, the gun does become more useful, to the point where it actually does feel better than the original in the end, even though when you first get it, it's definitely weaker than the original. Not by a large amount, but it definitely isn't the same. I'm one of the... I don't know how many people actually prefer the new plasma rifle, actually. I kind of wonder about that. Leave a comment down below if you prefer the plasma rifle or the original plasma rifle or the new one, the remake. I prefer the remake version, and there's not too much of a difference though with the versions, but it's still an improvement and a downgrade at the same time. There's also the Ripper. The Ripper I like a lot better in the new Dead Space. Just like in Dead Space 3, I'm pretty sure you saw it. Yeah, you have the Ripper in Dead Space 3. I like how you can shoot it and also obviously just hold the blade around and use it as a saw instead. That's something I've always loved about using the Ripper. The Ripper is one of the most overpowered weapons early game. Well, not early game, but near like the middle of the game-ish. It's still pretty early in the game though that you get it, and it's very helpful throughout the entire game. Even without any upgrades, that gun is... It's not technically a gun, it's technically a saw, but it's still overpowered as all hell. And it can get you out of a lot of tough situations, especially with all the elevator scenes. And all the new scenes that they've added, including... I don't really want to spoil much of that, but there is a scene where you do have to rely on timing to get through. I remember that there was one in the original game, but it's very different now. I don't think it's completely comparable at this point with that one as much, but another difference I think is not as much comparable is like how the bosses do feel more difficult. Well, actually, no, that is one but a lot of the boss battles, like the main bosses, feel way more difficult because not only do you have to fight them at the same way as before, you actually have to rely on your own movement while in space. There's also the part where I think you, this is a bit of a spoiler, going ahead, you can skip a little bit ahead. I'm not gonna put a timestamp, you can just guess when I stop talking, I guess. Because this is simplified review, it's not really meant to, I'm not really gonna put a lot of effort into this review. But, you're able to float, since you're able to float in space now, there's several parts where you need to rely on your own movement to get around. There's still gonna be necromorphs that attack you while you're in space, which makes it more interesting instead of, just bouncing around pretty much. And my favorite part about it is probably the part where you have to fix all these cannons to save the ship. Because the first time I started doing that part, I was very confused because it was very different from the original, and the thing is, it's super dynamic too with how it feels because you actually have to aim the cannons. It's not like you're aiming a gun or anything. Most of the weapons in the new remake feel like that. Like it feels like you're actually aiming the weapon, not just it's just there as an aesthetic and you have a crosshair or anything like that. You have a laser sight. It just feels more nice to have it more in a dynamic way with the gameplay and gunplay. Kind of like in Dead Space 2 and 3 where it felt more dynamic afterwards. Which, yeah, it makes sense they would do that, but it's definitely a big plus, and I would personally give this game an 8 out of 10 to 9 out of 10. A near perfect score, because the game is almost perfect, but I did have some issues with the game, and also some more issues with PlayStation 2 as well, with the PS5. I've had issues with that now. So the things I've had issues with the game are some of the glitches I've experienced where I either before I updated it, there was a glitch that would make me lose ammo for no fucking reason. So that was fun to deal with. And another thing I don't really like is how some of the voice lines can get cut off at certain points in time if you don't pay attention. It's done dynamically with the voice lines, which this is something I technically like as well, kind of a mix, because some of the cut offs sound unnatural, like they just cut off, but some of them do match with the game's flow, and it is a lot better than the original Dead Space, so it doesn't feel like you're just standing there for no reason. And another thing I like is, if you're injured, it'll alter how Isaac responds to pain. If he's injured and he starts talking to any of his allies, he'll sound like he's groaning in pain, and he'll seem like he's just in total shock from everything. During my first main run, I didn't really hear those voice lines. I pretty much just kept my health up the entire game. The closest I got to having bad health in that game was yellow. I just got a yellow bar. That was the closest thing during a conversation, but I guess another thing that did bother me though was probably just some of the things that I don't know, I'm trying to think of one thing that actually really bothers me. Oh yeah, in certain areas, your ability to grab objects, to pick them up and throw them, like with a gravity gun. It's not technically a gravity gun. I can't think of the name right now because I haven't checked. But oh, it's a rig system. The rig system, which allows you to pick up objects. Yep. I'm trying to think right now. You can use that to pick up objects around the map and use them as weapons, but I've had some issues with it where I couldn't grab an object, or because of how long I was playing, I couldn't do one of the side missions, which I'll get into that now. Side missions are amazing. There's one that's added where you can just play through Isaac's girlfriend's logs, which later on you find out what actually happened to her later on in the game. Not at the point in time where you're probably at, which is the game, but It's important to find all these audio logs because it gives unique story details, and also you get nods, weapon upgrades, ammo, things like that that are very helpful later on in the game. And it also makes you not have to backtrack as much trying to find the necromorphs to kill to get ammo, which is annoying as all hell. But yeah, overall, this game is much better than the original. It is a complete overhaul of the game, and besides like some minor glitches and bugs that I have issues with, it is a perfect game. And right here is just gonna be a warning for most console players in general. I know this is an issue on PS4, but I haven't played on Xbox yet or PC, which I plan to play on PC for the rest of the game, or for the next few rounds, including getting the secret ending I'm gonna get on the PS5, which I've gotten some of it done. But I searched it up early, so I do already know what it is, but I can't spoil that. But you just have to find a bunch of rocks that become, well, the one object that's causing this hell to begin with. The issues I have with my PlayStation 5 were, for one, the frame rate at random, even on performance mode, would just drop below 30 FPS even. Not often, but when it did, it would definitely make the game a lot harder than before. It would cause some interruptions to the gameplay. So if you're playing on PC, most likely you're gonna have, or PS5, the PS5 version, you're gonna have some issues with that. Frame rate, and sometimes some parts will look way more downgraded than they should be, to where it feels like there's somewhat of a downgrade in comparison to the original. Somewhat. It's like very small things though. It's not like the game's completely destroyed now. No, it's just a tiny bit off from what it was originally made, or originally looked like. It's like slight details like that, but when considering how good the game looks and overall everything in the game, I'd still recommend you buy it on PS5 even, but personally, I'd say that one's like lower on the list. It would be better to buy from PC or on Xbox, from what I can tell. Both of those look and run a lot better in comparison. And yes, the gameplay you see in the background, it's all from the PS5. I finally figured out how to transfer over recordings from there. And you guys can tell me in the comments what you think about this, if I should keep doing these reviews simplified, or if I should just go on my main channel and make a longer, more informed video, which would take me longer and could even take up days. That's partially why I want to do it, is because it would. And I'll see you all in the next video, and also, if whoever is watching this video, please hurry the fuck up with your uploading that video. I don't know if it's the internet or something that's going on, which I hope it is, and that would really suck if your Wi-Fi is causing these problems, but it wouldn't surprise me. Just given that I know the company and brand, and I relatively live near that area. And I hope all of you are having an amazing day, and goodbye.